Hey everybody, welcome back. So if you've ever thought about working with snakes, reptiles, or if you currently are, there's one question that keeps popping up here pretty regularly here recently, and that is about their behavior. Why is this animal acting like this when I've got this other one and it's been perfectly fine? Or this one right here is absolutely losing their mind, and this other one that I just got seems to be nice and peaceful and everything. So there's a topic I think that encompasses a lot of that stuff, and that's the difference between nature and nurture. It's something that we hear a lot, everything from our own kids to dogs, cats, any other thing that we can have. Everything has got their natural state of being and the nurtured state of being that they achieve through working with us and their level of comfort with us. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today, show a couple examples of that, and show how it's not really as intuitive as you may think today on Intrepid Exotics. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. Now don't forget, guys, before we get started, if you aren't already a USARK member, jump down in the description of all my videos. There's links to USARK and USARK Florida, both great organizations. They do a lot for the reptile community and animal keepers in general. You can go down there, you can look at usark.org, see what they're all about, look at the memberships and so forth. It's not a lot, and it does a lot of good. So definitely get on board with that. Strongly encourage folks to do that. Now, of course, too, if you're not subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting on? Get down, click the button. We're always talking about snake stuff here, lizard stuff, all kinds of cool stuff. And summer's coming, so we're going to be going outside a lot more here lately, which will be a lot of fun. So, back to the snakes. This is, and this is one of those things, I don't script any of this stuff. It's all right off the cuff. And it sometimes can be a little bit tricky going into snake behavior, because there is so much conflicting information. And when I say conflicting information, I mean information that's all true that contradicts itself. It's just like when we're working with the big reticulated pythons, and we'll talk about, man, these are the easiest animals in the world to work with. They're great. But somebody else may have an absolute terrifying experience with an animal that they just can't seem to see eye to eye with. And it really ties into what we're talking about today. Is it nature or nurture that determines what our relationship's going to be with that animal? And the answer to that is simply yes. Yeah, it's everything. Every little nuance. It's just like when you're dealing with people, either somebody could be really clicking and you just feel comfortable with that person, or maybe there's just something there that you're not really comfortable with. That can make the difference of how much you interact with them. It's kind of the same thing with our snakes. You can see animals that they'll come in from environments where they've been mistreated, mishandled, things like that. You can be really, really scared of people. And then turn around really quickly. The other ones, not quite so much. It may take a long time. They may never come around. And then you can also have animals that have been, kept perfectly safe. They've not really had any negative experiences. And they always seem like they want to fight. They always seem like they're defensive. There's a couple good examples. The reason why I'm up here today, got a couple good examples of both of those up here. One of them you guys may have seen before. And this is an animal that I picked up from really, really bad circumstances. You want to come out and say hi? Come on. Come on, girl. When I picked her up, she was ice cold in a fish tank with no water in it. Really tiny hide that really wasn't big enough to accommodate her. And as you guys can see already, we always talk about the snake hooks and things like that. You can see I just reached right in there and grabbed her. She came from a pretty bad environment when I got her. And kind of a really cool thing about this story, even as bad as it was for her, was that I did the same thing. The first time I went to see her before I got her, I just went right into the enclosure, no snake hooks, nothing like that. Just went in, picked her up. She immediately came to my chest and just sat there and was soaking up the warmth because she was ice cold. But ever since that day, working with her, she has been an absolute gem. She's never struck at me. Every time I go to feed her, you can see her always taking that extra second to look at it and make sure that, okay, yeah, this is okay, this is a rodent. Amazing for such a young snake that really didn't have a great start to have such a positive attitude about stuff. And this is a mainland reticulated python too, and she's a female. So she's going to get really sizable. And this is what I mean when I talk about the older ones and their capacity to be real easy to work with. I mean, outside of the weight. But this girl, I don't see any reason to think that she's ever going to start to develop a bad attitude. Just like any animals, they can have their on days and their off days and things like that. But this is one example where you think that this animal would probably have a pretty bad demeanor, just because of the environment that she was in. And look at you, goofball. She's been squeezing through some stuff in here in her enclosure. So I've got to do some work. It is a constant trial and error with these guys. Anytime you do any of these more elaborate enclosures, they will find something to get themselves in trouble with. Every time. And she loves to come out of her enclosure so much that every time I close her in it, she's trying to find a way out. So, come on, girl. Why don't you go ahead and jump back in there. Now, if we go over here, we've got another example. This guy's pretty popular. This is Silent Bob. He's our Sri Lankan python. And this is a case where this animal came from a really good breeder, really good keeper, and naturally just wanted to fight. The second we brought him home, has been wanting to fight the whole time. It took some time to get him calmed down to where he was, able to be handled and stuff like that. But he still has some spirit to him. We haven't killed his spirit by any stretch of the imagination. But we have been able to work through that and kind of nurture that positive side of him and get him to the point where he can work with us. So if I go in, you want to come out, bud? I know, you don't want to come out. You never want to come out until you get out. Come on, buddy. There you go. And I always watch his butt when I take him out just to make sure he doesn't want to musk on me or nothing like that. But you could probably hear, him kind of huffing and puffing at me a little bit when it came time to take him out. But this guy would put up such a fight every time I would go in there for the first few times of handling him. And like I said, it just is in his nature to not want anything to do with people. And after a little bit of time working with him, you can see, let me get up here a little bit. He loves to just get up here and start running around and pretty much taking charge of everything because that's what he does. But he started out completely terrified. And it wasn't due to, being mistreated or anything like that. He's just, this particular animal is really spirited. And he does really good most of the time. I take him out. One thing that you'll notice about him, if you'd followed him from the beginning, he used to bite a lot. And I haven't had a bite from this guy in forever. He'll run around and yell and scream, stuff like that. But that's about it. As long as I keep him supported and let him do pretty much what he wants to do, he's good. And this is one of those times where, his nature is to put up a fight. He kind of wants to run his own show, wants to do what he wants to do. But it takes a very short period of time of having him out where he really starts to relax. And the reason is because we've built that trust. He knows that he's not in danger. He knows that he doesn't have anything to worry about. And he can pretty much run around and do essentially whatever he wants to. So two really different examples there of snakes that came from completely different types of environments, whose demeanor is really kind of counterintuitive to what we would think it would be. Like I said, you would think with Chloe, the little retic over there, it coming from a bad spot, she'd have a bad disposition, she'd be terrified of people. And that just wasn't the case, man. She just latched on just the second I got her and has been that way ever since. Now, this guy, again, you know, counterintuitively, you would think, coming from a good breeder, from a good place where he was taken care of and had all his parameters right, you think he'd be perfectly fine and trustworthy. Well, it's taken a long time to get to the point where we're at now. And as you can see, he still protests a bit when it comes time to come out of the enclosure. So, but I do not worry about this guy biting me at all now. Yeah. And this is the nurturing part of it. That's where that makes the difference for these guys. Here you go, bud. You did good. You can go home. You know, and if you're having a harder time getting an animal to really relax that you're working with, try just really examining and kind of putting a mirror up as you're handling this animal, and how much of it is your own apprehension. You know, if you're nervous or you're afraid of going in to get the animal out, you know, they're going to pick up on that. You're not going to be confident. They're not going to trust you, which is it's 100% of the game, is getting all these guys to trust you. You know, once they realize it, once they come out, they get to check stuff out. They get to come out of their enclosure and have a little bit of fun, which they do. This one right here is a perfect example of that. And I want to go back to this girl real quick, because this is her all day, every day. I think you can see her. Let me get down here where you can maybe, there we go. Yeah, see, this is pretty much ever since I've gotten her, this is what we got to deal with. She goes in there. She wants to come hang out, because that's what she does all the time, is just hang out. And I never recommend going into a snake enclosure face first. But this isn't a snake. This is my kid. Ain't ya? Just the sweetest girl alive. And like I say, you know, everybody talks about the reticulated python food response and things like that. And yeah, they're right. A lot of retics have got a really hot food response. But this girl, she's so interactive that, like I said, when I go to feed her, you can actually see her taking a second and evaluating to make sure that it's okay to bite it before she just goes nuts. Ain't that right? I've never had her have a mistaken strike on me. All the times that I've just reached into the enclosure on her, not once has she mistaken me for anything and went for me. So, you know, it is a testament to these animals' intelligence as well. Their ability to recognize and remember things is really uncanny. And I guess while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and get Athena out for a second. What you doing, girl? You want to come out and say hi too? This is another one. Same thing. She's a Burmese python. And I have the same relationship with this girl right here. You know, there's no snake hooks in our interactions at all. She knows what time it is. We interact enough to where there's just never any worry about a confusion with a food strike or anything like that. The only thing that I will say with that is, if you do have an animal that you've got this kind of relationship with, you still got to respect them to the point. It's a lot the way, you know, if you've got, say you've got a significant other that's a fighter or something like that, it may not be a really good idea to jump up from behind a door and scare them or something like that, because they might instinctively turn around and deck you. It's the same thing with our snakes. If you know that they're in a position where they might be sleeping or something like that, then, you know, you just got to respect them, use some common sense. I'm not going to go up if I think they're sleeping and just grab them or something like that, because then that could instinctively snap them into a bite. But it's just like handling all the other ones. You know, you go in, you give them a couple seconds to figure out what's going on, and they're typically fine. Her, I can go in over top of her, do whatever I want. And she's got this thing that she's doing lately where she wants to keep like her tail wrapped up in her hide. And she just kind of sticks her head out and says hi every now and then. Every 2 hours, really. I'm not going to wrestle her out of her hide. But if you've got one that you're working with and you're having a little bit of problems, they don't seem like they're really settling in like they should. You know, of course, when you get a new animal, it's best to give them, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, whatever it is. Just kind of let them sit in there and get used to their environment. After that time, once it comes time to start handling them, almost guarantee if you're just confident and kind of respectful of their space, and you're probably going to have a pretty good experience with them overall. So anyway, I thought that'd be a good thing to talk about today. The whole nature versus nurture thing has just been rolling through my head all day. And it really is a little bit different with snakes because their nature, like I said, is really chill, really comfortable. It's the nurturing part that makes all the difference because, you can take them from that comfortable state and make them nervous and uneasy and make everything terrible. Or you can, just work with them in a way that makes them comfortable. And ultimately, you get animals like this that just can't wait to come out of the enclosure and hang on your neck and run around the office and stuff like that while you're trying to work. So this is one of those topics that we could sit here and talk about all day long. But that one little aspect of it, that nature versus nurture, I thought it might help some folks put things into perspective. Maybe, something to keep in the back of your mind when you're working with your animals. And, if you've got any specific questions or problems or anything like that, by all means, jump down in the comments, let me know. Maybe if you've got something specific enough, we can jump in there and make another whole video on that. So you guys have an outstanding day, and we'll see you next time on Intrepid Exotics.